the company, when Anthony was putting it together, some of the initial approaches were designed around the NVOCC challenges in today's market. There are a lot of manual processes, fragmented systems. People have tools like CargoWise, but they have 4 or 5 other tools that may or may not be integrated. In our past, Randy will tell you that we had split screens where we jumped from one application to another application, copy and paste, or manually retype. So there's a lot of manual processes in the daily workflow of moving ocean freight. And then limited visibility. And we had teams of expediters and specialists who would follow every shipment and kind of nudge it along through each handoff point. From getting the empty container spotted at the shipper to getting that container stuffed and then off to the port, making sure it got tendered, loaded on board, all the paperwork was done properly, the AES filing was performed, and the booking was moved as booked on the scheduled vessel operator. And then the same thing kind of in reverse as it got to the destination port, cleared customs, and finally went out for delivery. So a couple things that there's very good visibility once you get it loaded on board on one of the 9 big vessel operators, somebody like CMA CGM or MSC or NYK line. They all have very good systems. You can tell latitude, longitude, GPS, ETA during the voyage. But before the voyage and after the voyage on the ocean side, there's what we call the digital voyage. And so there's 35 touch points in an ocean freight shipment, and most of them are not tracked. So one of the things that we sought out to do was to automate that process and make end-to-end transparency possible. And so the integrated solution we developed, Comfort Cloud, the real goals were to increase sales, to make profitability visible, all the costs are visible, to track the containers, right? The optimal utilization of positioning the containers, managing the booking, and automating that workflow. Really, you should only have to enter the data once. And we even created a tool called MyCargo so the shippers can move the data from their warehouse management system or their order management system so that you're not re-entering data over and over throughout the life of a shipment. It goes into the platform, and then the platform uses APIs and internal EDI to connect all the different disparate systems. So the goal of end-to-end tracking and proactive exception handling. If there's something that's going to be late, you want to inform the customer. You don't want to defy an expectation. You want to confirm an expectation. If things go wrong, which they do in shipping, you want to be in front of it with the data. And then finally, there's usually dozens of PDFs or Excel spreadsheets attached to every file. And so managing the documents is not, we don't lead with that, but it's certainly a core feature in our platform so that you have a repository of all of the data on each shipment. So hopefully for our NVOCC clients, that'll allow them to accelerate their sales cycle. Well, one of the things that is most frustrating for both the shippers and the NVOCCs is the latency time of quote acquisition, proper quoting, and then communicating that to the customer. And in the modern world, you can actually go online and get a quote very, very quickly. And the traditional freight forwarders sometimes take a day, 2 days, because they have to deal with time zones and dealing with an agent perhaps. And it can take a day or 2 to put a quote together. So the idea here is to have a very rapid turnaround from the opportunity in RFQ to quote, request for quotation to having that quote delivered to a customer. And in many countries, the shippers will, or the consignee, depending on the Incoterms, will put out a shipment to 10 different forwarders. And usually within 2 or 3 days, they make a decision. Obviously, they're looking for low cost, but sometimes, if they run out of time within a day or two, really the first quote that's attractive in booking. And so things too, we built in that My Cargo to Sea fleet automation, as we discussed. So with My Cargo, you can take your data from any kind of a MRP system, warehouse management system, TMS, and make the booking and then pass that electronically. And we offer My Cargo for free to any shipper. So, and very low cost for the rest of the tools. So, we're talking about $500 a month or less, and that works out to, less than $1 per transaction, which is very, very low. Right? Most freight forwarders charge between $25 and $35 to do air bill creation. So we're on the very low side, and that's on purpose because we want access and adoption. And one of the ways you do that is to make it as low cost as possible. I think the low cost solution is going to be the one that gets the most traction. And then we also offer white labels where you can have a private exchange. So if you have contract rates that you only want to give to certain parties, you can do the white label with those clients directly. So a couple things: the booking management, the house bill creation and aggregation. There's really two bills. There's what we call an upstream, which is the house bill of lading, and then the carrier, the vessel operator, has the master bill. And so there's two, and we handle both of those electronically, and we send that through, so it's visible all throughout the group that you designate. So it's user ID and password protected. You define your own groups for internal visibility, and then we automate the workflow of those documents getting promulgated throughout your system. And then if you choose, you can have the customer self-serve. Customer has access to their own shipment data with security, so they can't look at all of their shipments, obviously, but they can look at their own. So if you have a single customer, they can self-serve as much as they want to, or we can automate the reports any way if the data's in there, we can produce the reports. So the goals here at end-to-end visibility all in one place, exception management. So making those kind of a stoplight icon of green, everything's fine, yellow, something potentially at risk, red, something's either gone wrong or going to go wrong. So, and you can set those parameters by geofencing, by dates, by really any criteria that we can automate. And then we publish that to as many stakeholders as you designate and manage the analytics so that you can have real time. Whoever has the best data wins. And when you're sitting with an ocean carrier and they're trying to get a better rate from you and you're trying to get a better rate from them, being able to have all the shipment history at your fingertips helps the negotiation on whoever has the best FedEx. And then connecting to multi-carrier, if you have, for you, what could be one purchase order might go to 3 different ports. It might go to Jebel Ali, it might go to Singapore, it might go to Europort in Rotterdam. So connecting all those carriers and making them visible. One of the partnerships that we have is with FIATA. So we're an authorized partner and have automated interfaces with FIATA for their electronic freight bill of lading, which is certified by the United Nations and has full authentication capability. So we create a FIATA bill and we keep that in digital repository, and that can be sent to banks, letters of credit, to customs, whomever, throughout the voyage. We also keep track of the containers, and we're adding quite a bit of IoT functionality to that. So tracking cool temp, temperature control, tip and tell, anything that an IoT can track, we have the capability to publish that alongside the shipment. And one of the kind of underestimated parts of any ocean activity is the detention and demurrage. And we're seeing a lot of that during the Trump tariffs because there's some uncertainty if the container will get stuffed and ready to go, and then there'll be a tariff change. And so something's been put on a hold status. Well, that's rarely free longer than 72 hours. And so keeping track of those costs is also important. And that kind of is a segue into the P&L management of you want to have as much good data about your shipping activity from a profitability standpoint. The freight forwarding business is not a 70%, 50%, 30% margin business. It's a very low margin business at the end of the day. And so managing that is an important part of the P&L management. Yeah, so anyway, we'll continue. So real-time profitability. So you can look into the system and look at by customer, by carrier, by lane, to give you the decision support data to calculate profit margin or God forbid losses, right? On any individual customer criteria. And then since that data is in a secure database, you can connect it with whatever ERP platform or financial platform that you're using. So I'll jump off and let Randy come in. And if there's any questions, feel free to ask along the way.
Great. Thank you, John. Great information and data with that. Hey, would you mind popping up the PowerPoint on your side, John?
No problem.
Thank you. So this is a great segue from what digital transformation, documentation, and the things that John was talking specifically about were as it relates to ocean freight and the freight piece of how we move things from country A to country B. I'm bring into the fold a procurement aspect of it, specifically for freight procurement, starting with ocean freight, going in, having the ability to then work into air freight. And there's two pieces to this. So there's one being Oriental Logistics Group, which is the largest LCL carrier globally into the US, Southeast Asia, India, and Europe. It's the Asian part of the Vanguard Group. Second part to this is a fully dedicated procurement organization, Global Logistics Procurement LLC, based here in the US, that the two organizations combined, and with it, it offers our customer base, or my customer base, which are NVOs, the ability and a platform to buy ocean freight rates at net compatibility that only the bigger carriers offer to their larger freight forwarders.
That to me is very interesting, Randy. The ability for a small NVO to get access to your kind of major rate. In my experience, if you have 10 shipments a month, Maersk Lines isn't even going to send you sales rep to your door. right? Unless you have a personal relationship, you're not going to get access to that kind of bulk rate.
Correct.
So
Correct.
if I can, for a minimal fee, ride on your contracts and use your tariffs, that's huge.
And what it does, John, is it allows a SME and a smaller organization, a boutique type company, boutique forwarder, the ability to buy or procure ocean freight at a very competitive base. It allows the NVO to be competitive with, say, the bigger legacy freight forwarders to a certain degree. The idea of this is rather simple. I have contracts based on years of relationships with all the major carriers from Maersk, MSC, CMA, YML, Yang Ming, that we procure at a large volume contractually as well as on the spot market. With that, every week or every time, rates fluctuate, which in the Asian market, it's the 1st through the 15th through the last day of the month. The Indian market, which is very interesting and has been for the last 6 months plus into the US, the time frame for the buy is between 3 to 5 weeks. And what that does is it allows us to bring together and procure net rates, offer net to the NVO. They then can go sell that to their customers, both here in the US as well as anywhere abroad. So depending on the country, the port pairs, the contract that they're looking at, or what goods they're trying to move. So, and really it's just a procurement organization that both with the ocean side that does then bring into the digital side, which is what Oriental offers and what we're able to offer in any one of our 12 countries that we're established in. So we cover the globe in all of Southeast Asia. It is a privately held organization with covering all of China-based ports, Hong Kong, Taiwan. We're a Taiwanese-based company, so we get out of the fold of Beijing, but yet have the ability to operate and have relationships on the mainland, as well throughout Southeast Asia. And then added to that globally, we cover LATAM, the US, Canada, and Africa through our agent network. And the partnership the partnership together that we've talked about, and John and I have talked about, is that what you're offering online and your platforms fit very nicely into the customer base or the market and verticals that we tap into, since we are working through the wholesale market and through various global organizations, WCA, JTrans, and several others, to offer our services to. So it's a great partnership in how we can work together, both to enhance and complement the end users, one service, to the ability to procure and buy at very competitive rates and at volumes that, whether it's small or large, because of the combined effort, it brings everything together to do that. So I think I've kind of gone through all of the 8 slides or 7 slides that we had, but it gives you an idea of what I think the market in the global market, as well as the market in the US, is moving to, where it is an online platform, and that anything digital is all connected, very well received and where the future is. To add to this, aside from port or airport services, we are able to via digital transformation offer pickup and delivery both at origin and at destination. So by providing this online service or providing the services through technology, it perfectly pairs with all the documentation and everything else that Palm Freight and Bly Chain are working together to create. So I will be happy to answer any questions, speak with anyone, talk a little bit further about what we can offer and what we do offer at a global level. I have to say that there are two very important markets at the moment, India and our Latin American piece, and then the third being our Southeast Asia business units, which are Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia. We also have brick and mortar and our standalone businesses in each of those countries to source as well as to move goods outside or export from those places into the US, Canada, Europe, Latin America, cross-border business into Africa. We can do anything that the customer needs and or wants.
That's terrific. One of the things that was interesting is when you and I were discussing, you have the ability to do warehouse fulfillment, e-commerce, pick and pack all the way through as well, and that's integrated into your systems, which I think is a great turnkey solution. Because I think the customer,
that is correct. Yes,
the customer saying, in the old days, the customer would say Singapore to Los Angeles, and you'd quote on the rate. Now the customer is saying, here's my problem, solve my problem.
Correct. We become educators for educators that provide services versus a strict service provider relationship. So they're looking for solutions, and what we're capable of providing our end-to-end solutions at a piece by piece basis and or full real estate. So depending the need, whatever the need is for that particular NVO, we can design and work accordingly based on what the need is. And again, the unique thing about this is that both the services and the platforms we're offering, my customer is our SMEs and medium-sized to small NVOCCs. So freight forwarders that actually go out to the direct BCO customers and bid and work directly with supply chain and consumer-based companies.
I think that's really important because for the SMEs, the small guys, and when I say small, some of them are, thousands of containers, but they may be focused on, North America to Chile, right? They may have a geographic specialty, but you don't want to say no when your good customer says, listen, I've got a shipment coming out of Taiwan. I need your help in Taipei. Even though, Toronto or Montreal to Chile is my specialty, if my customer has a need and I can get, the procurement rates from Oriental or Randy, I can then move that freight, take care of my customer, and not rely on kind of a random agency relationship and use a trusted partner and still deliver all of the digital tools that come with it.
Well, and part of it too, John, to add is that since we're a neutral buying party, I don't have our allegiance is to one, procuring the best rates, but also tailoring a service that fits what the client's need is. And again, my client being an NVO, there's different levels and different things that different expectations that the NVO's client is looking for. We're able to fill that gap and supply that niche service at a neutral party or neutral level on a wholesale level or at a wholesale level.
And I think that's really important for a lot of NVOCCs, is that you've got that professional distance as a wholesaler. You're not going to jump over them and like a top 20 forwarder would try to get the freight and get the contract. You're executing on their behalf. They own the shipper or the consignee, the freight payer, if you will.
Their own freight. Yep, correct.
Exactly. And you're not in any back solicitation position. You're a pure wholesaler that's acting on their behalf. So it's really a nice best of both worlds scenario.
And it also adds to that everyone gets the benefit, or everyone has, since all the rates are net, and what I offer everyone is net. The benefit is that it levels out the playing field for everyone. So when they're going up and as you noted earlier in your presentation, a client will go out and ask 10 freight forwarders for rates. Well, they're all going to the same place for rates, and they all have to mark up, mark down. It becomes a gamble, we'll see, or like going to Wall Street based on what the stock is valued at today. The unique thing about this is that it's equal for everyone.
That's right. So, Anthony, I don't know if you want to do any, so I got a message. Micah David is planning on joining us as the Senior Director of North America for Meast Logistics. He's had a family health issue that he's taking care of, so we're going to reschedule him for the next time. But Anthony, if there's any comments that you'd like to make, we still have a little bit of time, then we'll open it up for questions and answers.
I think, John, I'm not sure today. Hi, Randy. My network is really bad, I think, today. You able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I think there is a network cable was cut, I think, last 2 days back. I'm not sure. Is that the issue? But I couldn't follow any conversation since the beginning of the webinar, so I'm really sorry. But I think I will give a few comments on what my observations and what the intermediaries would do. Thanks, Randy, for giving your insights. One of the things what we have observed in the industry for the intermediaries is that the upstream and downstream integration in a digital platform, right? So, for example, today the vertical integration is happening in the maritime trade because the carriers or the enterprises have the technology to reach out to the customers. Whereas the intermediaries have to work with the carriers in the different applications and then going for the booking with the customers and in a different way. So what is your viewpoint on having a platform like Pomfret Cloud, which helps the integration of upstream with the customers booking, managing their cargo from door to door delivery tracking and every other aspect of documentation, as well as aggregating this customers booking into specific carriers and everything else. We see that is a very much essentials for intermediaries to have that as a kind of a must-have features or must-have technology in their portfolio to go into the future. And that is one of the things what we are focusing. So if you have any viewpoints on that, please share it.
I'm sorry, Anthony, I missed the last part of your question. Any data points on what topic specifically?
So Dubai has had a undersea cable fiber optic cut. Microsoft just reported that. And so the two primary cable bundles that serve the Middle East have both been severed in the Red Sea. But in any case, what I was able to hear him, so I'll kind of requote. He was just saying, as you use digital tools, as you use platforms, in your presentation, you had some of the benefits of smart shipping and digitalization, and how that benefits you from one of the things that we've discussed is you want to be able to grow your business without having to enhance your headcount all the time, right? So to scale business using technology as opposed to scaling it with humans.
You froze, John. Sorry. From my side.
That's okay.
So on the point of by not increasing your head count or keeping everything at a sometimes cables or not, we still go back to the Excel spreadsheet to a degree, but at the same time it's just brought up because we do have back of the house services available in each of our countries because we do offer brick and mortar. We are able to both manually manage that as well as manage it online or via the cloud. So
one of the things that I was really enjoying and looking at your presentation and talking to you is the idea of being able to see inventory all the way back to the supplier. Right. So if I'm in Detroit and I'm an automotive guy and I want to see inventory, I can see it in Taiwan in the Oriental Logistics warehouse and order against it, which I think that kind of cradle to grave inventory has become very important. Right. In the old days, we had, order double and stay out of trouble. Right. You just have inventory on hand. And we kind of went back to some of that during COVID times, but I think we're very much back into a JIT environment. And having that visibility all the way back into the warehouse and then having that automated execution, that's exciting if I'm a customer.
It's covered in all time zones globally then. So because it's as close to it's real time updates based on as everything's put in and or taken out of inventory.
So if I had inventory in Vietnam and inventory in Taiwan and inventory in China, I could look and say, okay, I have I need 20,000 units. I've got 10,000 in Vietnam, I've got 5,000 in Taipei, and I've got 5,000 in Hong Kong. I can fill that order from multiple sources, and Oriental Logistics manages putting that all together and then transportation on top of it, which I think is
correct. With just inputting the data into the network and hitting the send button or the enter button and it distributes it to the appropriate warehouse and DC that we're working off of out of each country. And then it takes into account two costs. We haven't even really talked about the cost benefits of it, but it does then, there is capability, or it does take into, as you mentioned earlier, John, like the tariffing costs. If you're trying to balance your P&L with customs duty costs, it allows you to budget for that a little bit more accurately than not.
And that became very important in a couple of months ago when the tariffs really were kind of thrust upon us very quickly, a lot of scrambling was going on, right? Because for a lot of customers, even big companies, Fortune 1000 companies, the CEO or the C-level is asking questions, and you get all the way down to the traffic department, or maybe procurement didn't have all the answers. So boards are asking questions like, should we be sourcing in Indonesia? Should we be sourcing in Latin America? Should we be sourcing in China? Let's look at the tariffs and come up with a total landed cost model. And frankly, most forwarders and most companies were struggling to get their arms around the data. So getting your arms around the data is one of the big benefits of having a platform, is that when you have to put together 20 Excel spreadsheets, one from my customs house broker, one from my freight forwarder, one from a supplier, and then try to audit that against what's the potential impact of the tariff. And the CEO is asking you a simple question: should we buy this from China with the tariff rate in China, or should we buy this from Vietnam with the tariff rate in Vietnam? And they want an answer in 10 minutes, and it's a very difficult problem to get your arms around the data. So having the data in one central repository all of a sudden makes a lot of sense. The good news about that is that logistics people, in my career, you could be a box kicker, right? You're a warehouse guy, you're an air freight guy, you're a logistics guy. You're not a board member. So I think, but logistics, through Walmart, through Apple, through a lot of companies, the importance of the supply chain has been elevated, and certainly the cost and the strategic value of having inventory or procuring materials has become a strategic as opposed to a tactical element in companies. So if you look at Apple, Tim Cook is a logistics guy, right? His whole career spanning from IBM to Lucent to Compaq and to Apple, he spent most of that time as a procurement logistics supply chain guy, and you can tell with Apple because they're excellent at it. Similarly with Carly Fiorina at Hewlett Packard, she was the head of procurement and supply chain at Lucent Technologies before she became CEO of Hewlett Packard and bought Compaq. So all of that, Andy, Randy, to echo what you just said about the cost element, right? So the cost element is now kind of front and center and very important. And in the past, people, did all the manufacturing steps, and at the very end, they figured out the transportation, packaging, logistics. Do we move air and ocean? How much time do we have? And now I think with the global economy and the information age, people want that up front. They want to be able to do a flight simulator, if you will, of what would this look like if it was an ocean shipment. Well, that's going to be 27 days door to door. And or an air freight shipment is going to be 6 days door to door. What if we used LCL? Help me make the decision between LCL and getting a 20-footer or a 40-footer. Help me make these economic buying decisions. And so that elevates the kind of transactional, licking a stamp, if you will, to all of a sudden you're more of a partner, engaged earlier and deeper into the customer relationship. So I think that the future is going to continue to be that way, right? I think we're going to see IoT in more and more places. I think 25 years ago, FedEx kind of revolutionized track and trace. Randy and I are old enough that we remember, he's not as old as I am, but I remember when we did this with telexes and paper tapes and certainly phone calls. And so the fact that a lot of this has become digital, and we're bridging the analog world into the digital world. And one of the things, there's a lot of buzz in our industry about AI and about predictive analytics and AI expert forecasting. can't use any of it until you have the data digital, right? You have to get your arms around the data. It can't be in disparate Excel spreadsheets or even in an EMS somewhere. It has to really be where if you're going to do big data analysis, you have to have the big data. And getting your arms around the data and scrubbing the data is really a challenge for most companies. And I think one of the things that a digital platform allows you to do is to make that a much more efficient process so that you can expose that data to a machine learning type environment and then get some of the outputs. I have a quick story about an example of that. When I was at American Airlines, it took 46 hours with 22 IBM mainframes to run our schedule. And we updated our schedule every 6 weeks and then finalized it for a 13-week. And we were selling airline reservations as both passenger, to some degree freight, but mostly passenger side, a year in advance. But it took 22 mainframes, 46 hours to run the schedule. And now they can run multiple schedules with hundreds of thousands of CPUs, like a Microsoft Azure or an Amazon Web Services environment. So you can have, hundreds of thousands of CPUs and GPUs performing those calculations. And instead of getting one answer at 46 hours that satisfies all the constraints, you can have hundreds of answers. What would be the absolute low-cost model? What would be the best model for the pilots? What would be the best model from a maintenance schedule? You can actually look at it from a lot of different ways. So I think that getting your arms around the data brings us to the next level. And I think Oriental has done a very good job of connecting the WMS, the inventory, if you will, in the order management into the freight system, which I think is really an awesome advantage. When you can integrate elements of the supply chain, take away some of those touch points, there's two things that happen. One, you have one neck to choke, right? From a customer standpoint, instead of having 5 different vendors, each pointing the finger at the other guy, you basically call Oriental Logistics and say, here's what I need. And, here, if anything goes wrong, you guys fix it, instead of making 5 different phone calls and 5 different vendors. So I think that's a key element of, so eliminating touch points. If you look in the past, we did a really good job of kind of shifting risk, shifting responsibility, shifting costs. So in the old days, people like Dell were very good at kind of moving the cost of inventory back into the supplier. With vendor managed inventory and supplier owned inventory, they would put the burden back onto the supplier components. The cost was still there, right? So Dell gained efficiencies by transferring that cost back into the supplier, and the supplier needed to do that in order to be a supplier. And nowadays, I think we're seeing more of a holistic approach, which is how do we take cost out of the supply chain instead of just moving the risk around. But again, you can't do any of that until you have your arms around the data. So Anthony, any final words? I know you've got a tough action with the cable cut there.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I think after so many days we waited for this webinar, and on this day, other services are working fine. I think only this webinar, when I come, this is having a challenge. So I think. Are you able to hear me properly? But I'm really not able to. Yeah. Okay.
You're fine right now. So a couple of the other things, and I'll close with one slide that I really. There are a couple of slides that really we look at. But can you see my screen?
I can see your screen, John. You still have the my PowerPoint.
Okay, I'll show very quickly.
You can see only the white blank slide.
So in building the conference solution, we've looked at really a lot of the elements, right? Finance, and there are specialists in some of these categories, but very few places that connect all of them on a platform. So we're not trying to displace anyone from their specialty. If you have CargoWise, keep CargoWise, right? If you're using any other tool, keep using it for now, right? Interfaces, the user experience, the user interface, these are all evolving very quickly. And but keep that. And the piece that we're going to be doing is connecting all of the disparate pieces, right? Connecting the ports, connecting customs, connecting to the bank, connecting to the regulatory agencies if when necessary, and automating that bill. And if you look at a freight forwarder traditionally, we're not a freight forwarder, we're a technology provider. So our goal is to give you solutions that are very focused on workflow to move freight all the way through all the steps from A to Z on a ocean freight shipment. So managing that digital voyage, monitoring the execution of that voyage, and then reporting on that voyage, and then connecting all the dots, right? You should never have to leave the platform to get the data that you do need to run your business as an NVO freight forwarder. So that's really our goal. And with that, I'll thank Randy. And I'm always it's always a blessing for me. Randy's been a wonderful mentor for me over the years, and one of the smartest guys I know, and has a deep domain experience. And I think really blessed to have you on the call today, Randy. So thank you.
Thank you for the invite and letting me to present. Hey, as I told you yesterday, John, I've coined one of your terms in talking when I talk to new clients, and you get the credit for it: digital transformation.
And we need that in logistics, right?
Absolutely.
We absolutely need the better tools. And I want a clairvoyant tool, right? I want a tool that anticipates what my next right foot, left foot, 1, 2, 3, right? I want if I have 100 HP shipments a year, I want to do the first one, and I want the system to remember the second, third, fourth, fifth, and I want the system to guess like a smart spell checker would. I want the system to inform me. It looks like you've done this shipment 26 times before. Is this, similar? And I want that kind of data to really move our system into, we're in 2025 already. So, and it's not there yet. So there's a huge opportunity. And I think if we look at the massive spend, Anthony's done a lot of great work on this, but we're talking not in billions of dollars. We're literally talking about trillions of dollars of maritime trade. So if we can make a 1% improvement, just as good humanitarians, right? If we can make a 1 or 2% improvement in that ecosystem, it's great for the environment. It's great for all parties involved. It helps, economic viability. And when we talk about international diplomacy, we see governments battle it out together, but then we see businesses conduct business together. So to some degree, we're all in trade, transportation, and logistics. We're all ambassadors. And so I'll close with that: is that we want to be the best ambassadors we can, not just for our country, but for our industry and for trade. And we saw how important that was in COVID times, right? As people needed medicine, they needed food, they needed, we're all interconnected and reliant on each other. So trade is kind of the glue. And enabling trade, I think, is a noble activity for all of us. It's and something we can feel great about. if we do it well. And I think we're all committed to, improving the industry. So this continuous quality improvement approach is something that we all can buy into and that we all benefit from. So with that, I'll close for today. And again, thanks, Randy. Thanks, Sakshi. Thanks, Anthony, for your input. And we'll see you on the next webinar in a month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.